March 27th, 2024. Traci and Wulwyn, Eavesdrop in a Moment, Season 5, EP5. Good afternoon, Traci.
Good afternoon, Wulwyn. Yes, it is. It is a lovely day here in North Carolina, isn't it?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love gloomy.
You love gloomy. I
Love it.
love that you love gloomy. I mean, it's that's the thing. It's always a reminder that not everybody loves the same things. Sometimes I love gloomy. Today, it's kind of I don't have time to think about whether I like gloomy or not.
Stop. Don't say that when I have something in my
I don't know. I'm just, I just happened to notice it was gloomy as I'm running in the room trying to get everything set up. So
it's gloomy, and I like, sunny is great. When it gets gloomy, I'm okay with it. I'm very okay because it's cozy. It's just, I feel a kind of warmth along with it. And
yeah.
I remember in high school, even in junior high, elementary, we had the desk that, was wooden chairs. So the chair and then the desk was attached,
Oh yeah.
coming around, right? Like a Nike sign around you. So if I would always go for the wall, because I would put my chair against the wall, because the left wall, because I was right-handed. So I hit it against the wall. And then if I bought a raincoat or a jacket, I would hang it on my friend's back of his chair in the back and connect it to the back of mine. So I was in my first class cabin. And that just made me, ooh. So when these gloomy days, and today, I closed the curtains, I'm like, yeah, I would feel like I'm in that first class cabin.
Nice. You are in a first class. You are first class. So you're in your own cabin. I love that. It's so funny you bring up those chairs. So I'm left-handed.
Okay.
But I always like to say I'm left-handed. I've been living in a right-handed world. And I didn't like the left-handed chairs, right? Because first of all, it would throw off everything, right? So you've got, you go and you have to go on the other side to get in.
Correct.
Same thing with all the stuff. I also don't write like this. I write normally. So it means that I have to keep the butt of my hand up. Otherwise I smear my work.
Gotcha.
I've never done left-handed stuff.
Wow.
I've always done it. Even I remember playing basketball in junior high, and obviously they're not always thinking. If everybody's right-handed, they're not thinking about the left-hander, and so you spend more time doing layups on one side than the other.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you just learn how to live in a right-handed world.
Wow.
Which makes you, because again, it's perspective, right? Because when things are created a certain way, it creates a particular experience and perspective, kind of like sitting in those seats. I actually preferred the right-handed seats because they were more normal. The other thing is you don't want the teacher to go, oh yeah, do we have any of those left-handed? You don't want to be standing out when you're like in middle school and high school. That's like the worst time to stand out. So yeah, just learning.
I never imagined you were left-handed.
Really?
Never imagined you were left-handed. Hey, Jay Dwayne, how you doing, man? Love is a parable.
Hey, Jay.
Good to see you on here, man.
Most people say to me, oh yeah, I should have pegged you for a left-handed person, because I have that kind of, different way about me. And they're like, yeah, I should have.
You didn't. So you know what are what it's forming in my head. It's coming because you said it. What is it like a right-handed person in a left-handed world? What is it like where you are pegged, and this you weren't pegged. You decided that you wanted to go with left hand, with the right-handed desk, etc. But I wonder, what does it feel like a left-handed person or a right-handed person in the opposites world, like driving in Europe, in England, right? If I'm driving and driving on the left-hand side, etc. Does it throw you off? Do you quickly learn it? The brain we are adaptable. I know we're adaptable.
Yeah, we're very adaptable. And, and I think it really has more to do with normalcy than it does whether you're left or right-handed, right? So it's that concept of, a fish is asked, how's the water?
Gotcha.
Right? And the fish is like, what do you mean? It's like, the stuff you're swimming in. And it's like, oh, because it's almost like saying, how's the air? It's like, oh, you forget, right? That we're breathing in air. Like the water, you don't think about it because it's literally all around you, and it's just your experience, right? So for me, I never knew it was it really was never a thing. I never knew it was a thing when it came to certain things. Like people are like, oh, do you need left-handed scissors? I'm like, it never occurred to me that I would need left-handed scissors because I never cut things with my left hand.
Wow.
So I write with my left hand. I do when it comes to like I pitch, like I throw with my left hand. But everything else I do. So that means I have to have a right catcher's mitt. Catcher's mitt.
Okay.
So, but other than that, it's just adaptation, right? You just adapt and you don't know any better. So little things, once they're pointed out, or if you notice that it's like, oh, I typically would go up this way and other people are going this way. Gotcha. I realize that, okay, I need to turn it around for myself, but.
Gotcha. But look, no pun intended, right? Dwayne, he says it wouldn't be right.
It wouldn't be right. That's right.
About left and right-handed. And strangely we'll say this, Traci, when I went to get my just drinking some warm water here, and I said, why don't they have both of these on on both sides? And I sat myself downstairs in the teacup, and I said, hold up, I'm right-handed. It's okay, I know, but I didn't think. I said, oh, it's the left-handed folks. We would have a left-handed teacup that would have the sign or logo on that side, and even watches. There are watches that are for left-handed people.
Because of the way, yeah, you wear it. Well, and that's true. I mean, yeah, I don't wear a watch. I think I may have worn a watch for like 5 minutes in the 80s. Um, so I've never been a person. What does that tell you about my relationship with time?
Things you didn't know about Traci. This AP will tell you that she's left-handed and she doesn't wear watches.
I know where watches, exactly. I will not use those on identification questions.
Gotcha. So how are you, my dear? How are you doing today
Well, I've been,
besides everything else that I mean, stuff that happened in the bridge collapsing in Baltimore. Ooh,
yeah,
you hear that?
a lot of
That
people who know I used to live in Baltimore have been reaching out.
mm, mm,
Yeah, I mean, so on that,
mm,
one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time with is this concept of energy and where we place our energy. And
mhm,
again, it's where we focus is what grows, right?
right,
So one of the things that not and it's has nothing to do with not being compassionate or caring, but everybody yesterday was all about, oh, and my husband is one of those that drills down to the facts on things, and he wants to know, and then he wants to talk about all that. And I'm very sensitive to those types
mhm,
of things. I can easily go to, thinking about all of the people who might have passed and, all of that. And so I have to be very careful with my energy when it comes to news and
mm,
stories.
gotcha.
Um, and I'm aware of that. And so it's really that idea of like, where am I finding my energy going? And, I've had to say to him a couple times, I don't need any more information. Right.
Mm,
It's not like I don't want to think about it, like it doesn't involve me. So move on. It's actually because I want to be creating
mm,
less opportunity for more of that kind of thing to happen. And I
mm,
think when we focus on the oh how awfuls, we don't realize that we tend to produce an energy vortex that creates more oh how awfuls,
mm,
right? And more things to be, you know, in misery over.
mm,
And so because I'm really diving into quantum physics and the use of our energy and recognizing where we can be more productive with our
mhm,
energy in
mm,
ways we intention as opposed to
okay,
ways we don't intention. um
okay.
and kind of how that looks, feels, and is, because that's a big part of what I teach. And so it's kind of like, I gotta learn to walk the talk.
Yeah,
um and so drilling down, I think this last week has been really drilling down because I've had a lot of opportunities to be in some really challenging moments as well as some really celebratory moments, and
mm,
kind of just witnessing my energy and where it's going and
yeah,
what's coming from that
correct,
investment of my
correct,
focus.
correct.
So yeah, that's where I've been. What about you?
I mean, I understand completely. You are empathetic and sympathetic, to it. You're not cold to it.
Mhm.
You're just deciding what to do. I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I never watch the news. Where do I get my news from? Well, if I'm scrolling on Instagram or Facebook quickly and I see, I go, oh, okay, and I keep on going and I get off, but I don't go to the news, the hourly news or even get on the news websites because I just as you said, energy wise, for me, I my is my soul open to sympathy so much so that it could freeze me? I
Mhm.
think so. But it's more I rather for me, I rather read my Bible. I rather listen, I rather meditate. I rather pray. I and not saying it's negative for what your husband or even Verlin for me. Verlin is she's an attorney. Come on. The only thing that I thought about in that scenario was there's a new captain who didn't know what it was, or for an accident, for a plane crash to occur, there has to be everything aligned at a particular point in time. The autopilots off, the pilots off. I mean, just everything has to be aligned for a plane to crash And I'm saying to myself, gosh, what happened? And these accidents occur. They seem similar to how when we're driving and someone else they come in and smash into us, and we go, oh my goodness, what, didn't you see me? Nah, they didn't see you, or they were thinking of something differently.
Yeah.
um, i
Yeah.
just I just pray for those families and the captain of that ship.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
it did lose power. Apparently, that's what happened because they saw it glitching out. They had, I guess, apparently it stopped traffic. And this was all at very early hours of the morning. I'm like, why was there so much traffic on that bridge at that time of the day? Like it's like 1 a.m. But they had stopped traffic. So there was a lot less traffic
Wow.
than would have been because they saw the barge making its way in the wrong, not
The
lined
wrong
up
route.
the right way.
Gotcha.
And so they're always monitoring those things. And so they were able to but there were still people, that they hadn't stopped or whatever that they were going across, but much less than it would have been. So it's, it is one of, again, recognizing, for me, it's those moments of gratitude, as well as, sending prayers to those, who are going through what they're going through right now. That feels productive to me.
But
Right.
ooh,
They're already some people are saying, oh, you saw explosions going off at different places, it's like the Twin Towers kind of thing. So there's already the conspiracy,
yeah.
out there that's being built up. And so I think that what I see is that people's minds will go where they go.
Mhm.
And that's usually an autopilot thing. For me, I'm choosing to have it be much more intentional in my life. Like you said, I go to the Bible. Like when we have more clarity, again, being very clear on our intentions and then release expectations. Like I don't have expectations of other people. Like I don't have control over other people. But I can do that for myself. I can have intentions for what I want to grow in the world. And if my energy is my vote, then what I vote for matters. So it's like, okay, is that going to get my vote, or is
Correct.
going to the Bible going to get my vote, or is focusing on what I'm grateful for going to get my vote? That's what I'm really paying a lot of attention to.
Traci, and you said it. I think you said it. Moments of gratitude. As soon as I saw it, what came to my mind? Scenarios that God has protected me, that I don't have any control over. That I'm walking, I'm driving. Last night we were coming from a prayer meeting, and there are a couple of trees leaning. I mean, really, they're ready to fall. They are ready to fall. And I said, gosh, these trees are leaning completely. They're about to fall. Who's to say they couldn't just fall right on the car, right over my side, and boom, I'm done. So the moments of gratitude, when I saw that, I go, somebody was supposed to be on that, and then it's somebody else was there. But these things happen. They happen.
Yeah.
Somebody was supposed to be on that bridge at that particular time. For the past 20 years, they've been going at the identical time. And yesterday they chose to go a different way, or they got late, or something happened, that they are, as much as others are crying, they are going, oh my goodness, I am so grateful for what occurred, that I didn't get on that bridge, or I didn't get in that house that seconds before it exploded. Just different things. I'm in Planet Fitness yesterday exercising, and I hear this roar, and I looked up, and I said, if this place implodes right now, and I hadn't seen the bridge collapse yet, I said, if this place implodes right now, God, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. I mean,
And I'm going to be strong.
oh, I'm going to be one of those strong ones. But just what you said, it's I think these things, as much as you can go down a rabbit's hole and do the conspiracy theorists plans and what they do, I think it's for personally for me, I go into my moment of gratitude and say, you I know I've been in these situations before. I know you haven't been. Let me not be what you call. I'll scratch that. You haven't been in a war before. Let me be. Don't be presumptuous. I have. I've been in a war for 6 to 8 months to a year. There's all of us have times where we're going to be in some trying situations that if this situation didn't get you in your gratitude, you're grateful for it. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful, for the others, but we all have our time on earth and we will have these things happening to us at one time or the other. And I'm just grateful that I didn't die right during the war because there were bullets passing, pew, pew, coming in through the roof of the house. I'm grateful. Mm.
Somebody said something at the recent conference that I was at. She was sharing how she has just made things happen in her business. And she said, I come from a place that is at war right now. And I was able to get out, and I didn't know whether I was going to be able to live. Right. And so she says, it's interesting how when you live in that much fear of your life, and you get to a place and then your fears are, is my business going to succeed? She says it really is a perspective shifter. And she said, one is a potential reality. The other one is, I guess your business failing is a potential reality too, but it's this idea of life or the loss of a business. She says, I got to the point where I was like, I have nothing to lose. Right. That you get so prepared for the worst case scenario that nothing else really is as scary. And you're willing to move through those fears to make things happen.
Wow.
And it really was that moment of saying, yeah, I think that, and I oftentimes say, I saw this a lot when I was a teacher, and I see it a lot as a coach as well. But with the younger generations, when I was teaching, is I could always tell the kids that had had a rough start. There was always this sense of groundedness and wisdom to them, even at a young age. And I think that that's what happens when we go through struggle, is it builds up. It's kind of like you at the gym, right? We tear down our muscles to build them up, right? So we get torn down in life experiences, and that can we can give it a story that continues to tear us down, or that tear down can be a part of our buildup. And, that's the only way muscles can be built is to be torn. And, but that's why we have to rest in between. We can't just work out the same every day, because then it's just tear, right? Like it never gets the rest time to build back up. But that's where the bulk comes from, is tearing it down and building, to build it up, tearing it down to build it up. And I think there's a lot going on in this world right now that we're tearing down in order to have the opportunity to build things up. But again, it all depends on where we put our energy and how we create with that. Because if we keep giving it the story of, oh my God, we're going down with the Titanic, guess what? And everybody focuses their energy in that direction, we're going down, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
But if we say, okay, this is a blip, and, again, I'm not here to try to make light of tragedy. But I am here to say that when we're dealing with what is, it's a choice of what we do next.
Wow.
And so when we're dealing with a reality that is, it's about saying, okay, what do I choose to do with what is? I could sit here and try to go into a world of, I don't want to believe, I don't want to see it. I don't want to, la la land illusion. We can do that. That's that's an option. We can make it worse than it is, right? We can make it better than it is, or we can just accept what is and say, now what? right?
Yeah.
Because one of the
Yeah.
things I'm also noticing is making it better than it is. My tendency, because my mind is very growth driven,
Mm-hmm.
I don't always allow myself to feel the negative stuff. And because I'm just, my head is always like, well, it could be worse, and let's
Correct.
move on, and let's, at least I'm
Correct.
here to fight another day, that kind of thing, and be very quick to move on. And that's great that I have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
But there's also valid data in the emotions. And so I've been trying to really sit and allow myself to just accept what is in all of its various versions.
Mm-hmm.
What is in my head
Mm-hmm.
when something challenging happens, what is in my heart when something challenging happens, what is in my instinctive gut when something challenging happens.
Yeah.
And just simply collect the data without jumping on it and trying to make something from it. To just sit with it and witness it. That's another practice that I've been leaning
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. When you spoke about the lady, the sense of urgency and keeping that, as I thought about it, after 1990, 92, 93 in Liberia, there was a sense of urgency, but I think with time, it dulls. But just now, when you said it, it became so real to me that every, not because of the trial and the struggle, which is an opener for you to understand the beauty of life, but it's so important to understand that life is a gift. That life is a gift. We have a purpose, and we're here to fulfill our purpose. And as much, I'll tell you this. When I still go back to this, it's so real to me. God calls me and says, "Leave your job," and I leave my job. After I leave it, within a second year, where finances was looking really, really funny, money was funny, change strange. I I started to cry because my flesh was going to a new place of leaning on my spirit to trust in God. And as my flesh was crying, the struggle, do you know that within my tears, God would say, "Hey, hey, quit crying. You got a purpose you have to prepare for." So I'm bringing that piece to us where, as we are hit with these tragedies, you can stay there and cry as much as you want, but you have a purpose here that you're supposed to wipe your tears and get on with what you're supposed to do. That's external. Let's talk about internal. You're in preparation mode for greatness. And as you're walking this path, something happens to you personally and you want to stop, which is okay, pause, but stay a bit much longer in that position. Get up from there, my people, eavesdroppers. Get up from there, wipe your tears, sniff, and keep walking. Because your true purpose, when it's fulfilled, will take a lot of crying people from where they are into a position of joy. Makes sense, Traci?
It does make sense. As I'm listening to you, for me, I believe there's a piece that we can do all of it at once.
Mm.
I don't think we have to wipe our tears if we're not fully cried out, right? If we still have
Go.
tears to pass, right? Emoting is how we move the data within our emotions from one place to another, right? Is how we get, to utilize that data, right? Is by moving through it. And if we truncate that experience, we don't get the full experience of the data being delivered from where it's entering to where it needs to be, and just like thoughts, right? It's kind of a usurped thought, right? It's been taken from us, before it's fully formed. I do believe we can do it, but I like what you said about getting up and, we don't necessarily have to dry our tears if they're not done yet, but we can still move through the tears, right? We can feel the feelings and we can move forward. That's where I feel like we're meant to visit these places. We're not meant to live there. Everything is in constant change. So stories, I mean, even things that we decided worked for us. I was just talking to somebody about this from a nutrition standpoint yesterday. Something we've landed on that worked for our bodies 10 years ago may not work for it today, right? We may need different things now than we needed 10 years ago. So it's like, oh, I figured this, I cracked the code on my personal nutrition. Well, if we cracked it 10 years ago, guaranteed, if you haven't been changing to keep, up with the changes within you, right, then you're not where you need to be, because nothing ever stops. So I think it's that idea of, if we get too stuck in our thoughts and we marinate, we're spending too much time there. Too stuck in our feelings and we're marinating, we're spending too much time there. We need to keep moving through it, through a thought, through a feeling, through a gut hunch, instinct. Instincts are probably the ones that are most geared towards not spending a lot of time there, because they're instant hits. You get a hunch, it boom, it hits. Now you can take it up into your mind and think about it for long periods of time, or you can take it into your heart, make a story about it, and have an emotional experience that goes on for a long time. But the actual hit of instinct is quick, right? Left or right? Up or down, right? It's going to tell you right in that moment, and you're either going to take it or you're not. So I think that's one of the things that, really allowing ourselves to, I'm really fascinated with the inner gadgetry, right? What we already have designed, within us to help us and guide us, in the directions that are going to be most fruitful for us. And you talk about purpose, right? Towards our purpose, whatever that purpose may be, because I think a lot of times we may think in our heads that our purpose is this, and then something falls into our path, and we're like, no, get out of the way. That's not my purpose. When in reality, it's in our path because it is a part of our actual purpose.
Correct.
Right. And so, and you talk a lot about that and being called, you and I both use that language, I'm being called right now. I'm being called into working more with women. And interestingly enough, I'm finding a lot of, the potential new clients that might be male kind of falling by the wayside, and what's replacing them? Women. I'm not here to question that. I'm not here to say, no. Up until now, I focused on men. Because for me, it makes complete sense that it's not men or women that's the point. It's leadership. And what are the current leadership trends and patterns that are calling for all of us to pay attention to? Again, leadership's my realm. So I'm speaking to my particular path, but it's, for me, it's like, okay, it's going to change. It's going to change as the needs change, as our patterns, take us, or the opportunities to go in new directions to create new, right? As it's fascinating to me that the systems we all live in are based on male psychology. So just like being a left-handed person in a right-handed world, there's more right-handed people than left-handed people on this planet, is being a woman in a world where every single system that we live in, pretty much, not every system, but most of the systems we organize ourselves in are based on the way men think. And so, but you know what that's made me as a left-handed woman? Very adaptable, very flexible, very able to move with the flow, right? When I allow myself. So I think that's the other piece about our gadgetry, is we need to start to trust that we have the ability to do these things. So we're not trying to control and manage it so much. We actually get to discover what it actually is, and hone that more and more, right? Work with it instead of trying to manage it. Because most of the time when we're trying to manage something, we don't understand it. We're trying to manage something we don't understand.
Wow. So going back, just, I think it's don't stay there.
Yes.
Don't stay in your moping, right? As I said, you can cry, but it's the amount of the length of time. But then someone would argue someone mourns for a year, so they have to mourn for a year. But you can mourn for a year and do what you're supposed to do in moving forward,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
I was speaking to a lady yesterday, and I've seen this happen over time. Hey, eavesdroppers, you're kind of quiet. I see the numbers. There's a control board here that I'm looking at. I can see how many people are on. Let us know what you're thinking this beautiful 27th day of March. It truly helps in our conversations here. But I've noticed that things that you purpose in your heart that you do physically are things that you are enabled to do spiritually. Here's my supporting to my thesis statement. I'm speaking to this lady the other day, and she says, and no, she was talking, and I said, you're a builder. See, you have a builder. You are a builder. You build things. And she goes, oh, that is so true. She's a pastor. She says, do you know what? Anytime I get engaged with a marriage that's broken, by the time I complete speaking to them, their marriage is healed and they keep on moving forward.
Mm.
And she's the same person who, in her mind, decided to build an annex to her church with few dollars in the bank account. And by now, Traci, it's finished. And this was in less than 2 months, 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
said, you have a builder now. Another person said they wanted to be a doctor. And I looked at her. She said, but I can't, I'm not a doctor. I'm a at-home wife and a stay-at-home wife. I at homeschooling, etc. And I looked at her, and because of this knowledge and understanding, I said, do you really think you're supposed to be a medical doctor? Or are you a person who, when you engage with someone, you can heal them as you're speaking the words that you have, etc.? Now, I will come to my case. I'm also a builder. I love looking at bridges and architecture and lines, etc. And I go, oh my goodness. But then I found that I'm a builder of people. I build people. I build relationships. I produce nuclear energy as I engage with people within them, that they can become a better version of themselves. I know that. So what you see, there's a parallel in the spirit world and your physical world, that what you are attracted to in the physical, there is a spiritual aspect that you have, or purpose that you have, that is supposed to go and heal the world. And don't just look at the physical.
Yeah. Well, so I have an interesting relationship with the word healer. I don't believe we heal things. I believe they heal themselves, but I think our energy can support that healing, or it can disrupt it. So I think that there's, that's just my, my,
that's yours and that's mine also. So,
because I don't feel like I'm like, oh, healer, I'm going to heal you. Like, it's just, that's not my place. You will heal yourself if you are in the right conditions to do that. And that's true of the body too. I don't believe the body needs to be healed. Now, sometimes the body needs to be repaired. That's different. But healing, the healing the body is naturally inclined to do itself, and everything within this world is the same thing. It's the same way. Now, it's also, you could have a whole bunch of healers around someone. If they don't want to be healed, they ain't going to be healed.
That's true.
So it's really up to the person's choice if they want that support, right? But energy, if we turn our energy on things in a healing way to support healing, right, then that thing that's trying to heal has more energy to pull from it to heal, right? But they do the healing, right? And so I think I love what you're saying about that, because I believe you're right. It's the architecture, right, or the blueprint. And when we look at that, as above, so below, we see that manifested in all sorts of different ways. It makes me think of, so I was speaking at a conference last Wednesday, and then I was participating in a different conference last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And the conference I was in on Friday was really neat. It was also a women's conference. And I went to one of the breakout sessions about branding, and the woman in the branding workshop was just fabulous. And one of the things she had us doing is she says, a lot of times we have we have our persona. It's not a lot of times. Every time we have our persona and we have our shadow side. And the ego is constantly going between the two, trying to manage them, right? Mm-hmm. And so the persona is what we show to the world. The shadow side is what we hide from the world. But there's sides of ourselves, right? And it's important to embrace them. And she says, in branding, we want to bring the whole self forward, right? Mm-hmm. If the self, the self, whether it is you are your brand or whether you are the founder of your brand, you are the energy producer of that brand. And so you want to bring your whole self to produce that brand. Right. And so she says, but she goes, I'm going to use the example of working with someone who is their brand. And she said, she says, I'll give an example of this older woman. She came out of corporate. She wanted to go into the coaching, business. But she was older and she felt she was kind of aged out a little bit, and people wouldn't necessarily want to hire her or work with her, even though she had all this, executive experience. And so this woman invited her to embrace that part of her. And she's like, what is great about being the crone, being the wise sage, and that woman then incorporated that aspect, and it ended up being mother, right? She felt very motherly. She had a very motherly energy. And so that became a part of her brand. And it was like the executive mother or something like that. I remember exactly what the words were. But to bring both sides, she says she wanted to be seen in the world as an executive who had lots of experience. And then also as this nurturing, wise, supportive mother. And so she says, you put those together and then you have more of the whole self, So I was thinking about that. And I believe I'm here to be a disruptor, but not for the reasons a lot of people may think, right? I'm here to disrupt from a place of love, because what I disrupt is what's off course. I disrupt the blockages, right? I've always been able to hear what isn't true, whether it's an actual falsehood that's being spoken or people just think falsely about themselves. I can find those things that are blocking truth and I disrupt them. And so, but I'm also a muse, right? I also come into people's energy and I spark creativity. And so the disruptive muse were my two words. So we were supposed to pick two words. So it's thinking about those ideas of self that we're not all just the persona. And the ego does not have to manage so much when we come together and we embrace both sides, all aspects. We don't just have two sides. But for now, we're going to just talk in terms of that. Right? Is that light and the dark, right? The light and the shadow. The shadow doesn't have to be quote unquote bad. And in many cases, we've been taught and conditioned to believe that certain aspects of our good are actually bad, right? Like my disruptiveness was oftentimes got me in trouble, right? I was told you're bad, you're being bad. Like I'm being truthful. How's that bad? You may not like it, but it doesn't make it bad. And so I believe that it really is about thinking about that for all of us, right? In terms of what is our brand, whether it's, an actual brand, or who are we showing up as in the world? And are we embracing all aspects of ourselves in that? I think that's important. I was sharing with some friends this weekend. We were at the beach and I was, for whatever reason, part of my earlier, teenage life came up, and I was, and I said to them, I said, what I'm embracing right now is my ugly. And they're like, what? What? And so supportive as women are. And like, no, that's the story you're telling yourself. I'm like, no, no. And other people may not have seen it, but I was teased for, I was ugly during a certain period of time.
Mm.
And it just was.
Mm.
And I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to couch that storyline.
Mm.
I don't have to change it to make me feel better. I
Mm.
can just embrace it as is. That there was that period of my life where I was ugly. I just really was. I was really ugly. And it
Sorry.
doesn't, and it doesn't matter. Like, right? Like I think it's when we have to turn the story that make it
I
sound
love that.
comfortable, that
I
we're
love
constantly
that.
hiding aspects of it. You know,
Yeah.
let's call it what it is, at least to me, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if my parents
Mm-hmm.
never thought I was, that's great. I'm glad, you know, but I
Mm.
did. And that's my interpretation. That's what I'm embracing.
Oh
That
my
aspect.
goodness, you're crazy. I love that. You you say that, and I always tell my daughter Jazz. Both of them were born premature. You cannot really see features on a 2 pound 2 pound thing, I would say. And it's my daughter. I'm teasing, and we tease that. Even her adopted grandfather, a close family friend who's older, he would say later on in years that he, he would hold her and say, "Oh, Jazz, you're so beautiful now, and you used to be you used to be so ugly." And I mean, no, really, if you looked at her, she looked like something in between uh human and something in between something, just because she was so
Yeah.
small, she hadn't formed. She was about 6 7 months.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do 9 months. And she laughs and she says, "I used to be ugly, but thank God I'm beautiful." Another thing is, people used to laugh at my head and my ears. They would say I had big ears. And one thing I was so grateful for, mom and dad always, it's all about your firm foundation.
Yeah.
Is what happens in your foundation, on your foundation, with your foundation. So I'm the youngest of three. They would tease, and and I knew the teasing wasn't coming from a negative place. One, right? It was just pure fun. Mom would tell me, "Man, I got you at the hospital," when I make her upset. I'd be like, "Yeah." So when she makes me upset, I said, "Can you take me back to the hospital so I can get my mom, a real mom?" So we would tease and laugh, but knowing the realities. And mom would say the only thing you need when you go out in the street is for you to have a good attitude, clean clothes, and pressed clothes. No matter if you wear them the same thing every single day.
Mm.
And I go, "Oh, Mom, can I?" So we're in Liberia, and they're got friends coming to the States getting sneakers, etc. "Mom,
Mhm.
can I get a pair of Nikes?" She's like, "No, you cannot get a pair of Nikes. It's who you are that makes the Nikes, not the Nikes making you." And be like, "Oh, this
Wow.
philosophy, this philosophy."
Woo!
But
I love that.
trust me, I grew up with my chest, always had a high shoulder. I grew up, I'll tell you this story. I went to Verlin's. Lord, when I think about this, confidence is good sometimes, but then sometimes it's really, really bad. I went, never had a tuxedo. I'm six, no, I'm 5'11" at the time. My cousin is 5'2". He says, "Oh, I have a suit I can give to you." So I'm like, "Thank you." The day off, he comes with a burgundy suit that's reaching me here, Traci. And I have to wear it, and I wore it. And this is my second time seeing Verlin, and Verlin and all her friends are in their black lace and tuxedos, etc. And I land in that place with my burgundy. I felt it, Traci. I felt out of place. But Traci, I tell you, I embraced it because I heard it's the person and not what I wore or what I wear. And I stepped in that place as if I was a peacock, which was a peacock because he had a collar on. And I went up to her, bum, bum, hurry. And she turned and went, and we still laugh at that today. But I think your firm foundation, where I'm happy with my big ears, I can hear better, is what I tell them. I'm happy with my big head. I got more brains than you. And be like, that's supposed to hurt you. I'm like, nah, you can't hurt me. You can't hurt me. It's when we, and just what you say, when you embrace the ugly, there's nothing they can do to you.
Yeah.
And when I hear you say ugly, as much as you were saying ugly facial, physical expression, I also thought about our ugly behaviors, internals, that we embrace and we say, we're going to stop doing this, rather than ignoring it and keep on being ugly.
Yep.
Internally. So back, you crack me up today.
Well, I love that.
You were ugly.
I was ugly. I was, and it's funny you brought that up too, because we teased my daughter, because there was, when she goes through the period of time where the kids like lose all their baby hair and the other hair. Well, so hers started to grow in, but only on one side. So she was a skater chick for like
okay.
Forever. Like it looked like it was shaved, and it was just, and it's strangled. I mean, it's kind of like the comb over. The guys that don't want to embrace the fact that they're losing their hair, so they comb it over. That was Madison's hair. It was the funniest thing. So it's like, but that's it. I mean, you look at her now, and that's the piece. And whether or not we go from ugly duckling to swan, that's not the point. The point is embracing who we are as we are. I mean, even if it takes years later to finally be able to go back and do that, maybe we weren't able to do it at the time because we were too traumatized or whatever.
Right.
The foundation that you brought up, that is so important. And whether it was created for us by our parents or whether we create it for ourselves now.
Yes.
Having that foundation, going back and where are the cracks in that foundation? Because if I don't shore that up myself, maybe I didn't have a family that did that for me, but I can do that for myself. Because if I don't have a firm foundation, whether it was given to me or whether I built it myself, then all the rest of this I'm trying to accomplish is not possible. It's built on sand. Right. And so that foundation is key. What you said about foundation is 100%. And when we have that, it's much easier to embrace all aspects of ourselves.
Gosh, Traci, you got goosebumps coming on me. I mean, because just what you said, you can have the best structure, the best brand, as you said. You can build this brand and have everything. Is it what I find or see someone who is so, what's the word? There's a complex that, am I beautiful? Can you tell me I'm beautiful? Can you say it again?
All of the surgery and the loops and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Where the filters, where their faces look morphed into, I'm like, that's supposed to be making you more beautiful.
And the new AI
standard of beauty in mind.
And the new AI pictures we see on Facebook, I smile and I go, wow. But then I see some people just using it over and over and over. And I'm saying, there's something, when you look at social media and you study, like I people watch and I just observe things that they put up. And I go and look at their feed, and you can get a good idea of someone who's firm, or someone who is in the middle, or someone who is in the middle of who's storming to come to form a norm. But we're all at our different places, so we be gracious. But I tell you, it's scary to see a 50, 60, 70-year-old who has done excellent things in this world, 40-year-olds, excellent things, but because their foundation, they haven't gone back there to embrace it, as you said. There are cracks in there that as soon as you touch them at a particular place, the entire cards fall.
Yeah, that's a good
House of
point.
cards fall.
Well, and where do we create that structure internally? Back to the first part of the conversation,
Mm.
is that security comes from within, not from without,
Yes.
right? And so if we're trying to build it in how we look or how much money we have or how
Mm.
many followers we have or anything external to ourselves, that's where it crumbles. That's because that's not real. That can go away like this. In many cases, it's not even real,
Yes.
right? It's manufactured in some way.
Wow.
And so it's that idea of saying, and actually, this is probably, you just landed on why I feel like I've been pulling more and more away from social platforms, because they actually prefer what isn't real to what is real. Their algorithms will factor out the real and choose the unreal more and more. I see that on Instagram a lot. So it's this idea of if you're not becoming more, I mean, I think they actually look a lot like aliens. I hate to say it. Like people with these big eyes, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like an alien form. And there's nothing wrong. Aliens are beautiful too, but still, like, come on, we're human. But the more alien, the more it's rises in the ranks, the more normal actual human, the more it doesn't. Really interesting fact. But I think in general, it's like you said, everybody's someplace different in their evolution. I kind of see three boats. I see those going down with the Titanic. I see those going into the cold waters, knowing the Titanic is not the right way to go, but not knowing really where to go next. And then I see the people choosing the lifeboats. And so it's kind of like wherever you fit, right? Or somewhere in between, perhaps. It's choosing your path, and that's just fine. But I feel like we can manage that path a lot more than we think. We keep focusing on external and what out here is going to save me, or what out here is going to make me feel better about myself or secure me, stabilize my foundation. We're always going to be in a crumbled state. We're going something is going to be able to get in our cracks and potentially topple us. We start to build more in here, and we work with what we've been given, God-given. I mean, God's energy. We're energy. We were created as mini creators. Right? We were created to be mini creators with our energy. We create with energy. We create with energy through God. Right? If we can funnel that direction, if we can understand that, if we're looking out at all, let's look up, right? Let's look to that energy piece and say, what is it I want to be creating? And am I doing that? Right? Is this energy going, if I want to go due north, is my energy going due south? Because if my energy is focused south and I want to go north, I'm not going north, right? I'll end up going south, and I don't want that. I think that's the key piece is the looking in and getting to know more of what he created us to be, because we have everything we need. We just keep thinking we need to create something more, or something out there is the answer, and we're missing the boat.
Wow. Well, I tell you, we have 2 more minutes on this, and I there it's within us. I think we've done a lot of talks on this in past EPs about introspection, where it takes the time to go and look at look at your foundation and truly look at, because nobody else is looking at it, and nobody else will look at it for you. And I think I like what you said, Wulwyn. We don't heal. It's me coming, that lady is coming to speak an environment around you, give you some knowledge, give you understanding, give you counsel, and you decide that I'm going to take this. And that's faith, right? You just explained faith by explaining that. It's us going and taking the time to look at our ugly. Look at my big ears. Look at the big head. Look at the broken tooth. Look at everything. It was one of those things I said to myself, oh, I'm not going to get on camera because you see my broken tooth. So what? Traci, take us home. You got about 45 seconds.
Oh, well, I think you said it best. I think although we've been talking a lot about the looking in concept, it isn't just about looking. It's about being in here and trusting that we were designed exactly right. We don't need to fix anything. We don't need to improve anything, unless it is, a part of our design to get us closer to our purpose and all that. Right. So So growth is one thing, but we don't have to change something to be okay with ourselves. That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make, is that we can just be okay with ourselves, ugly or otherwise, right? We can be with our okay with ourselves, rich or otherwise. We can be okay with ourselves in a relationship or otherwise. I mean, we get to choose. Like, happiness is really a choice, and being who we are is a choice.
Traci, these hours run by too fast.
I know. Thank you.
Thank you to all of eavesdroppers. I saw you out there. You didn't. Some spoke, some didn't. We truly appreciate it. Give us feedback. Also, March 27, 2024, EP5, Season 5. Truly appreciate you. And Traci, thank you so much. Have a good day.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah.